Hello, my name is Scott Davis. Welcome to New World Birth. This is my story of coming to the knowledge of human design and 7 years of deconditioning for year one, part one. This covers from June to December of 2010. My human design journey began June 8th, 2010, when I received a foundation reading from Randy Richmond. But before I get to all of that, I want to share some background information to set the stage. I've always been interested in astrology, which I studied and gave readings since about the time of my Saturn return. Actually, it was before that, around 1988, when I moved from Kittery, Maine to San Francisco. I also studied tarot and used to give readings on a 900 number. I studied and taught yoga and graduated from the Iyengar Yoga Institute of San Francisco's teacher training program in 1995. And I studied with BKS Iyengar in Pune, India in 1998. My yoga studies included the mechanics of the chakra system. In 2006, it was the Mayan calendar that absorbed my need to investigate, which I continued until being found by human design. And as we will see, it was a source of many of my vocational invitations. So prior to human design, I had many different systems that I was using to understand myself, others, and the nature of external energy on life cycles and global cycles. And each time I found a new system, I was consumed in my study, where it became something that I worked on daily, and human design would be no different. I became aware of human design in May of 2010 when my friend Stuart Smith, a classically trained astrologer, informed me that he had found a system that he had been looking for 20 years, and when he heard a podcast by Jenna Oblivion discussing the human design system. He told me it combined astrology with the I Ching, the chakra system, and the Kabbalistic tree of life. He told me that he had investigated several analysts and had selected Randy Richmond to get a foundation reading, and he invited me to do the same. So I contacted Randy, a fellow projector, and received my foundation reading on June 8th, 2010, and he told me, "You're here to call people to wonder." And later he said, "You can be useful and helpful and help fix people." This is my chart here. I'm a 5-1 profile with emotional authority, triple split projector. On the quarter of mutations, left angle cross of uncertainty. And Randy began the reading with some great projector information, like projectors are here looking for a life, not a job. Projectors are here to guide the work of other people. Projectors see energy where energy is wasted and make it more efficient. Don't overwork. You have nothing to prove. You see everything. Projectors are here looking for a life, the right kind of life to live. What's very important to them is who the other person is, and how they impact me. Because of how this is how you're going to recognize how to be influential. We're not group people, because we're a laser beam. We focus on the other. We focus on their G center, their identity, the second gate. We have the ability to penetrate the other. We devour the other. Projectors need their own space, especially when sleeping. If you're sleeping with someone, they are conditioning you in your sleep. Projectors hate wasted energy. We are very curious people. One of the keynotes of the projector is absorbing. We absorb things. We take it in. We're here to be recognized. Money is energy, and we get a reputation for over-controlling resources, of being cheap. Not true. Randy also shared some human design gems, like how to be a good passenger in your vehicle. He said, your vehicle is your life, and what is red comes from the planet. It has composition. It's your blood. That's why it's red. What is black comes from the stars. It's starborn. He also said,
70% of the neutrinos we receive come from the sun. Neutrinos are subatomic particles. They have mass. The mass is made up of information. Star information. It's why in astrology, neutrinos pass through Mars, and those neutrinos then pass through you, leave some of Mars in you, take some of you out into the universe. So we're in this giant information feed. We are informed by the universe, and we inform the universe. Right? That's how that kind of works. That's why Venus and Mars and Mercury, yes, they do have an effect. When we participate in this universal feed, and we also program the universe. To our small extent, individually, there are 6 billion of us, along with all the other life forms.
When he discussed my chart, he said,
you have the 18th gate, you see it there in your open splenic center. The 18th gate challenges authority. It also has a fear of authority, doesn't want anybody to have authority over you, but it's the ability to say the king has no clothes. That can be quite annoying in nice social situations, and you have the second gate of details, which is you can give people the details of how the king has no clothes.
I described an ethical issue occurring at my workplace, and Randy responded,
49th gate is the gate of principles.
Right.
And yours, fourth line, a social political agenda. So, when something is violating principles in a social or political way, you are there with your 18th gate going, no, this is against,
Right.
Hey, to say that's the trouble you get in? Oh no, it's like we need people like you. If we didn't have people challenging the pattern, see, the 18th gate is part of the logic circuit.
Right.
The logic is about patterns, and you can recognize, and you have an ability to recognize what's wrong with the pattern.
These evaluations will set the tone for information that will be described in future episodes of this series. One of my favorite things Randy said was his insight about giving human design readings.
See, it's a formula. And I liken it to a musical piece. So the notes and those little numbers of the octave the note is played in,
Right.
it's a musical piece that all works together. It's a synthesis. So no one part works in isolation.
Right.
So a lot of people or other analysts and things like that, they can give you some kind of rote detail, but they can't put the song together. They don't even know it is a song. And one of my jobs with the human design system is listening to the readings of people who want to be analysts and either approving them or not.
Right.
The criteria for that is very basic. The worst analyst can tell you something that's really incredible.
Right.
Just because he can mechanically go over what's there.
Right.
So that you can get something from anyone who is a certified analyst in human design.
Right.
I would say to you that's not necessary. No one has ever asked me if I'm a human design analyst.
Right.
So following that cursus honorarium is not necessary, as far as I'm concerned.
Randy encouraged me to learn the human design system and to provide readings because he revealed, I think you'd be good at this. This began what I consider a mentor relationship with Randy. He was a tremendous resource to me. I would email him questions and he would reply, I'm not a typist, and offer to call me. We had many conversations during that time, which at his suggestion I recorded so that I could review the material. All the audio files I'm going to be using in this series will be from my personal recordings of those conversations. The timing of the reading was interesting, as I was being laid off as a school social worker the following week. My position was being eliminated due to state budget cuts. At this point, I was back living in Maine, and I was tired of my career and was looking for a new direction. My foundation reading inspired me to consider giving readings as a potential vocation. I had very limited funds, and so being a good projector, I looked for free and inexpensive avenues to gain knowledge. After the reading, I developed a ferocious appetite for human design and began to investigate into the free media at Jovian Archive, including several live events with Ra, such as Q&A, Rave New Year, Guide to the Movie, and Guide to the Rave Chart. But more importantly, I began my experiment. I also listened to Human Design Voices Radio when they offered a free subscription in 2010, and that lasted for several months. The timing of human design in my life was also very interesting in that it arrived 9 months prior to my Chiron return. My position as a school-based clinical social worker eliminated. Embracing my strategy and authority meant that I could investigate work opportunities, first line profile, and apply if invited to do so, being a projector. But I believed the right opportunity would come from an invitation to work for work that pursued me. Being an emotional projector, I had to wait for invitations, then be hard to get on top of that. So my experiment was a total leap of faith into the void, but I was committed. At this time, I began some experiments and investigations to understand human design as an experience. I reviewed my life looking for experiences that were a direct result of accepting invitations. And I found that I had had many invitations in my life, and some of my most significant life events began with accepting an invitation. I had been invited in and out of a number of relationships. I had jobs I pursued, and I had jobs I was invited to do, and the employment that began with invitations seemed to be more meaningful. I had been invited to study yoga in India, and that turned into a 3-month odyssey of multiple invitations every day. Like the day I was trying to meet some fellow travelers in Jaisalmer. And the best way to get to Jaisalmer from Jodhpur is to take the train across the desert at night. Unfortunately, when I arrived at the train station, tickets were sold out for the week to come. So I went to the bus station and bought a ticket for the following day. I returned to the hotel that I was staying at, and as I was walking through the garden courtyard, an old man sitting at a table motioned me to come join him. He asked me where I was going. I told him that I was going to go visit the fort, because that was one of the places to visit in Jodhpur. He says, no, where are you going after Jodhpur? I said, I'm going to Jaisalmer. And he goes, oh, Jaisalmer. And he said, you're taking the train? And I said, no, I'd gone to the train station and the tickets were sold out for a week, so I'm taking the bus. He says, no, you can't take the bus. You have to take the train. So again, I explained that the train was sold out, and he said, no, you have to take the train. And then he said, the magistrate is my friend. And I thought, okay, this is very interesting. And so he motioned one of the boys that were working at the hotel to go get a cordless phone for him. And he gets on the phone and he calls the magistrate. And he said, we have to go there right now. And I'm like, okay, the fort can wait. Let's go meet the magistrate. So we got in a Jeep and we were driven to the magistrate's house where we were welcomed. And we sat down, and I knew in India that you wait until people come around to asking you what you're there for and things like that. So I sat there and I was very social and answering their questions, and we ate and had some fruit and drank chai. And eventually the magistrate said, I understand you want to take the train to Jaisalmer. And I said, yes, I do. And he said, well, what class ticket do you want? And I'm thinking, this train is sold out for the week to come, so I'll go first class, since we're wishing. And he then had one of his hired people come over, and they exchanged some sort of discussion in Hindi. And I don't speak Hindi, so I don't know what was said. But then he told me in English I should go with this man, and we walked out of the magistrate's house. and across the street and around the back of the train terminal to a back door in which we went in, and next thing I know, we're standing there in front of, next to the person selling tickets, and there was a long line out the door, and he stopped after he completed a transaction and turned to the man, and they spoke in Hindi, and I just stood there and, smiled or whatever. And then it was apparent to me that it was time for us to go back, and we went back to the magistrate's house, and the man talked to the magistrate and in Hindi, and then the magistrate talked to me in English, and he said that come back at 7:00 that night, and I would have a first class ticket that I could purchase to go to Jaisalmer on the train. Sure, I went back to the hotel, checked out of the hotel, packed up my backpack, and was there. And sure enough, I had a first class ticket to ride overnight on the train to Jaisalmer. This is just the way India was. India is a country of invitations, and India was an amazing solo journey. I felt like something was guiding and protecting me during my entire 3 months of trekking without a plan or a partner. I realized that I was being constantly invited to do what was correct for me. Another experiment that I undertook as an emotionally defined being is I spent a week disconnected from everything to watch my emotional wave. I live alone at the end of a long dirt road here in Maine, and being unemployed, I had time to take a week and purposely not interact with anyone or anything that might influence my emotions. So for a week, I didn't see or speak to anyone. I disconnected from all outside stimulus so that I could watch my emotional wave. I had specific times a day to measure the wave, and measure what I was feeling. And I had a clinical background that gave me measurement tools, and I found that I had a wave pattern of emotions going from hope to despair back to hope that lasted between 2 and 3 days. And from that experiment, I developed a certain grounding as I experienced strong emotions during my years of living my design. My mind would love to come up with all these reasons that I feel the way I do, but underneath it, I knew the emotional wave mechanics were at work, and that there was a powerful, and that was a powerful realization for me. Another powerful realization was that I had was that my mind was to be of service to others, but what it thought had no bearing on how I should decide what to do with my life. And that was really quite liberating. I felt like I got smarter because I had a lot more of my mind available to investigate and guide others, because there was no real value in thinking about what I needed to do in my life other than to just trust my process of following my strategy and honoring my authority. June 20th, just a few weeks after my foundation reading, after being invited, I participated in my first online classroom with Uru Hu, a free event entitled Conditioning, Love, Mind, Human Design. And it was a thrill to hear Ra lecture about and to be connected with people in the online classroom. And Ra started with, it's always fun for me to have a chance to give away some of the beauty that is in human design. And for me, what's important is that I give you something that's practical. That's the thing that makes human design special, is that it's so incredibly practical. It's about changing the nature of your life in a way that it's possible. One of the things that is so extraordinary about this process is that everything about who we are as beings is that we are here to be deeply, deeply aware. That awareness is supposed to be something that is some kind of is not supposed to be something that's some kind of bizarre happenstance that happens only once in a blue moon. It's about what's natural to us as nine-centered beings. Yet to get there, you have to deal with the most extraordinary battle of all. It is the thing that is going to determine whether there is going to be a change in your life or not. It all comes down to mind. I don't think that there is really anything else that stands in your way of you and your life than your own mind. Ra went on to discuss that mind was good for measurement and as an outer authority to commune with others, but it had no place in making decisions in a person's life. We have a way mechanically to be able to experiment and understand for ourselves that our mind in this life, in these vehicles, is not here to be in charge of what happens to us. He continued we have three basic components in human design. We have the magnetic monopole that sits here in the sternum, in the G center. It holds us together in our illusion of our separateness and moves us along our line of geometry. We have a design crystal that sits in the Ajna center. The design crystal filters the neutrino stream, and out of that comes your biomechanical mechanism, the vehicle, the life itself. And then in the head center, not the body, is why this triangle of the head center pierces in that sense, or goes beyond the physical form. That beyond the physical form, above the scalp, is the personality crystal. The personality crystal has never been part of the body. It is the personality crystal that ends up being who you think you are, your personality. And who you think you are has nothing to do with the cabal that exists between the design crystal and the monopole, because they were there before the personality entered the body. They already built the vehicle, and the vehicle is the life. So it's not for the personality crystal to be involved in deciding what the vehicle is going to do. This is the greatest challenge that we have. He also discussed how people go down the information rabbit hole and don't use their strategy and authority to live as themselves. One of the extraordinary things in the knowledge of human design in radical transformation is being able to ultimately watch the mechanism of the way in which your mind operates is a formula. It's only then begins to glimpse that all of yourself concerned about what your mind brings you has only been distortion, has only led you far away from being the passenger consciousness that you are incarnated to be. When you look at the design, I like simple. And if it's not simple, it's never universal. It's got to be simple. So many, when they approach human design, when they hear all the numbers, all the lines, the gates, the colors, the tones, the bases, the this, the that, there's a sense of being overwhelmed by all the information. It's not about that. All that information is because this is a science. It's the science of differentiation, and as a science, it can only be it can only stand on everything being revealed and elaborated in its mechanism. But to take advantage of the knowledge for yourself, you don't have to spend years in study. You don't, not unless you're a projector. It's not what it's about. And at the same time, you need to grasp certain basics that are there. They are in and of themselves enlightening. Ra goes on to discuss the different ways in which conditioning operates. This is the beauty for me of what it is to know your design and to know the design of others. This is a place where love grows, because this is where you see helplessness. You are what you are, and you either take advantage of it or you get lost in what you're not. And when you're lost in what you're not, what is there for you? There is a clock, a wheel that turns for everyone. This is a deeply fortunate incarnation if you have the opportunity to transform your life. This is a journey in human design is all about. It's not about the stuff that you can know. It isn't. It's about living it. Truly, it's about that you get to see for yourself in your own way that will take you where you are intended to go. It's not something that you can do for anyone else. It's not something anyone can do for you. It isn't. This is about selfishness, enlightened selfishness, because that's what it demands. Because you see the journey itself starts simply and gets deeper. It's not a matter of your going to experiment with your strategy and authority. This is about starting to live, starting your life as yourself. And you're a baby when you start. And it's about the day-to-day challenges of your mind in the world we live in, where there are these things around you that around you and the not self universe. They are not the thing. They are not going to change. Don't hold your breath for that. See, I'm not here to change the world, and neither is human design. You know, that is just fantasy. It's about one person at a time, maybe you, just one at a time. Because you see, this life process, until you're ready to see what it means, you don't get there. And my overall impression of the lecture was that conditioning is not something to be avoided, or that every openness that you have is a gateway to wisdom. And that was a powerful realization for me. Waiting for invitations was difficult at first, but I was steadfast, and little by slowly they began to trickle in. I got invited to teach some yoga classes and give some guitar lessons on July 1st. I was invited to give a lecture on the Mayan calendar at the Conway, New Hampshire Library, and then later on to study at Edgar Cayce's Association for Research and Enlightenment, ARE, in Virginia Beach with Barbara Hand Clow and Greg Brayton. And on the final day of the workshop, Barbara's husband, Gary Clow, invited me to play some solo acoustic guitar before Barbara and he presented on the Alchemy of Nine Dimensions, which was a huge unexpected honor to me. All this time I was spending any free time I had exploring human design. On August 15th, After being invited, I participated in my second online classroom experience with Ra Uru Hu, which I recall being a Q&A session where the audience would submit questions in the chat space, and Ra would select which questions he would answer. And I was honored that he answered my question regarding long-term cycles and what information should be highlighted in that type of reading. Around this time, I was also invited on and out of an on and off relationship that I had been in for 2 years. The invitations began to increase as I became more steadfast in following my strategy and authority. I gave many more lectures on the Mayan calendar, and I was invited to play music at various venues during the time. And I also even gave a brief talk on human design. I also created the infrastructure for New World Birth, and this was at the time where the sun was 88 degrees before my Chiron return. So this is the time of my design Chiron return in December 2010, and it was the beginning of my human design journey and also the beginning of New World Birth. So thank you for checking out New World Birth. This is the 7 years of deconditioning for year 1, part 1. The next installment, I'll cover Ra's presentations of the Rave New Year for 2011, guide to the movie, guide to the rave chart, as well as his passing, and my experience in attempting to take Living Your Design from the International Human Design School, and then eventually taking Living Your Design as a correspondence course with Teresa Blanding and joining a human design study group. Anyway, you can check us out on Facebook, Blogger, or YouTube, and I encourage you to share this information as videos or text as widely as you choose, and invite you to contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com if you have any questions or wish to schedule a reading. And if you've been thinking about getting a reading, please contact me, as I'd love to provide you a reading during these uncertain times. You'll need to be able to either call me in Maine in the USA, or we can connect with Skype to receive your reading. As always, I'm blessed that you've taken the time to connect with my passion for these ancient mysteries, their synthesis and application to our journey in this incarnation. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste and Lakesh, and as Ra would say, love yourself. Thank you, everybody.